game got off to an absolutely awful start, and yet we still won. Let's talk about it. Roll the intro. First pass of the game from Jared Goff was picked off. I thought that was going to set the tone for a brutally disappointing game. Turns out, I was wrong. This game played out a lot like how the matchups of the last 2 years have between the Lions and Packers. The Packers, when I first started watching the Lions, have dominated them throughout their the last 20 years up until recently. And it was annoying. That's why I hate the Packers. Blah blah blah. Aaron Rodgers last year against the Packers got swept and played horribly. He threw 3 picks in the game in Detroit, a game that the Lions won, but it didn't feel like they won as much as they could have. And then the last week of the season, they had a chance to go to the playoffs. Seattle beat the Rams, so they didn't have anything to play for, but they still beat the Packers in prime time and picked off Aaron Rodgers' last pass as a Packer. So this game is the beginning of the Jordan Love experiment, the beginning of the era of his dominance against the Lions, right? Not quite yet. Love actually played fine in this game, spared the 2 interceptions that he threw, which we'll get back to in a second. But in the third quarter, in the second half of the game, really, I think Jordan Love played fairly well. I think there's a lot to be excited for if you're a Packers fan about Jordan Love. And I think that overall throughout this whole season, he has been pretty good in certain situations, and they just need to get him more comfortable in the offense. Now, let's start with the offense, because I started with the defense, I believe, last week. Jared Goff, other than that first interception, he was pretty efficient. He didn't have mind-blowing numbers or anything. 19 of 28 for 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. But, so not like anything that you would look at and go, wow, outstanding. But Goff doesn't need to do that. Honestly, that's the thing that Goff is best at. He plays under the radar. He plays efficient ball. He isn't going to make super back-breaking mistakes. He's not going to throw 7 picks a game or whatever. But he's not necessarily going to put up those super huge numbers. He can under certain situations, but that requires the team to play fantastically around him. And the Lions, up until this point, have not shown me that they are the team to have a quarterback who doesn't put up amazing stats but still win. They did in this game. They have so far this season. So I'm a little encouraged by that fact. David Montgomery, who I said at the very beginning of the season, he's best when he gets 25 to 30 carries a game and he just wears out the defense, just kind of grinds for yardage. But he's not super efficient with those stats. He had like 3.5 yards a carry, 3.4. He had a 4 1 year, which was his best. This game, he was questionable coming into it, and he still dominated. I didn't know if he was going to play. I thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to get the bulk of the carries. I was wrong. He got the ball 32 times, I believe, for 121 yards, 3 touchdowns, all of them on goal line situations. He is a great back at that. He kind of replaced Jamal Williams with that, except Williams didn't really get any carries outside of that other than short yardage. David Montgomery is so far this season, but he still didn't average anything super impressive. 3.8 yards a carry, so it's not like he was breaking off super huge runs. He was just grinding out that defense, and our offensive line played very well in this game. They only gave up, I believe, 2 sacks from the Packers on Jared Goff, but they dominated. Both of the lines completely dominated the Packers. The offensive line was able to move people off, make space for the running game, and the defensive line, not only did they get 5 sacks in this game, but they also completely shut down the Packers' run game. Aaron Jones going into the game was questionable. He barely got any carries and didn't do anything with them. A.J. Dillon, their backup running back, who's still pretty good, still didn't get anything going, despite being the guy who should have been the David Montgomery for their team. They just didn't hand the ball off. They didn't even try because they didn't think they had a chance to win against our defensive line, which is an amazing sight to see from a team that I'm used to getting bullied around in the past. Really had a physical performance here today. Going back to the offense, they still didn't use Jahmyr Gibbs that much. A lot of people were complaining about that. Oh, maybe you should have picked Christian Gonzalez because they need help on the defense or whatever. And then he got hurt, so it doesn't really matter. But I would still like to see Gibbs used, especially in some passing situations and some different formations. But so far we're winning, so it's hard to complain. Amon-Ra St. Brown was kind of contained in this game. He didn't have his best performance in terms of yardage, though he did get wide open for a touchdown, which was nice, especially for my fantasy team. And then Sam Laporta, also I picked up in my fantasy league. He had a really good first half. He didn't really do much in the second half, but that's okay. He's a tight end. He got open when he needed to. He had 56 yards. He tied Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a real deal at the tight end position, and I'm really glad that we were able to find him and we picked the right tight end. Switching over to defense, Jeremy Jacobs got the 2 picks. He was really good. He stepped up through injuries. Speaking of which, Brian Branch was very good in this game yet again. He carried over from his last week where he had 11 tackles. This week he had 5, but then he got injured. And that's the biggest storyline, I think, coming out of this game, other than just our lines were really good. How injured is Brian Branch? They say that his MRI came back negative, so there's not any broken things in his ankle. But that's not necessarily meaning that it isn't a long-term injury. They did the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. His MRI was negative. Everyone was like, oh, he's okay. Torn Achilles out for the year. I don't care what he says. He's not coming back. So I don't think it's that because he did come back out in the field, but he came back out and then immediately went back down at a point where we were up by a margin where he shouldn't have been back in the game, I don't think. So really the question is, how injured is he? Should he sit this week and not play until the Bucs game? We're playing the Panthers next week, so it's not. I don't think it shouldn't be a super huge test in terms of a physical battle. It should be just win the game, do it easily, if you're a good team. If you're not a good team, you'll lose to them like you did last year. But we'll see. Sacks, like I said, Aiden Hutchinson had 1.5 sacks. He was pretty good. Starting to get to the quarterback a little bit more. Sped up his pass rush from the previous couple games, and he's not getting held quite as much. We got to talk, though, about the thing that scared me to death in this game. The third quarter was abysmal. The Lions offense got nothing going. The defense was injured. Brian Branch, that's when he got his injury. And they went right down the field and scored a touchdown. And then the Lions offense didn't do anything. And then they give the ball back to the Packers. And then they go down and score again. I thought they were going to have a comeback. And I was having a heart attack. I was like, you cannot do this if you're a legitimate contender like you say you are. And then they came out in the fourth quarter, had that response drive, which was just a really long drive, take up some clock, score a touchdown, which originally they hit the field goal, but thank you, Quay Walker. He's my favorite Packer. Yeah, we ended up scoring on that drive, and it really cooled down the momentum that the Packers had gained. But that's something that Dan Campbell has struggled with throughout his time. When he gets a lead, he goes from being the super aggressive coach who goes for it in a lot of situations that I wouldn't, and then you come out in the second half and you play not to lose. You can't do that in the modern NFL. You have to keep your foot on the gas. I know it's hard to do. I know that it's against human nature. When you have that huge lead, you look up at the scoreboard, you think, oh, we don't have to try as much. You do. You keep pushing. Good teams don't pick their feet up off the gas. They cannot do that. They almost let the Packers back into the game by doing that. Don't come out and just coast, because you can't win games like that in the modern NFL. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Looking forward to the Panthers game. Like I said, the Panthers are winless. It should be a game where you come out And even if you don't, like, blow them out necessarily, convincingly win the game. Don't have a bunch of back and forth nonsense. Don't, completely let the Panthers run all over you like they did last year. Come out, just have a solid game, win by, I don't even care if it's just by like 7 points. Come out and just win. That's what I expect for this next game. If they don't do that, we're going to have a serious discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.